Hey everybody, it's KLOS new and approved. I'm Matt Pinfield. I'm here with my old friend, the incredible Steve Stevens, who spent multiple weeks at #1 with Billy Morrison and Ozzy and the new single Crack Cocaine. It's so great to have Steve here on the show. We've been talking about doing it for a while, so I'm really happy to have Steve on. Steve, great to see you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Good to see you. I'm really glad we got a chance to do this.
Yeah, so Steve, you've been such a busy guy. I mean, you just recently, of course, the 40th anniversary of Rebel Yell. You guys have released a special deluxe edition of that, and you've been celebrating that. And it's so cool because, finally the version of Love Don't Live Here Anymore, the Rolls Royce song, and it's been covered by other people, but, everybody's talked about it for many years. It's been one of those things that people have wanted from you and Billy, and that, along with some really other cool things, are part of that. What was it like to get together and decide and look into what was available from that session in those times from that second full-length album?
Yeah, I mean, I was aware that we had almost completed that tune, and then we got word in the studio that Madonna had already finished it, and it was going to go on her next record with, Like a Virgin and all that. So we kind of put it on. We said, oh well, all right, that's it. We got to leave it. But the surprise was how far along some of the other ideas that we had embarked on were, and there was a couple of things that I totally forgot about. So it was kind of cool to, have a platform to kind of finish them out. And there was a musician friend of ours, Jacob Button, who was able to get the tracks up and embellish if we needed to, clean them up a little bit. What was amazing with a lot of that stuff is, I don't keep many pieces of old gear. I'm not a collector, but I did keep my original Rockman that I used on those sessions. So I was able to dig it out and match the guitars if I needed to, add anything. So yeah, it was cool. It was good to finally see that stuff see the light.
Yeah, and Jacob Button's a great guy. I was actually with him at a barbecue, Memorial Day barbecue on the roof of the Hollywood Tower, because he's an old friend too, and he's just such a great guy.
Super talented guy. Yeah,
amazingly talented. So I love that. I love seeing you guys working together. So, I mean, it's an exciting thing when you think it's 40 years because, I go back and remember seeing you guys playing at, the Red Fox, and I think it had a different name for a little while. And then at Rutgers University, when the first record came out. And but there were so many. I used to go to the clubs and see you guys, as the first record was out. There were so many shows. And go hang out with you guys sometimes, and it was, I was in college radio back then, but I loved it, man. And I was such a big fan. So I'm glad to see that now the first 2 albums are special editions of those available to fans, and I know that people are really excited about it. One of the things you did just recently, Steve, was you guys played on the Empire State Building. I mean, you've been doing these incredible things lately. For me, I just love it because, hey, what's on that bucket list? And that's a really cool one. Playing on the observation deck. Talk to me about that. It sounded like it was fun.
Well, I think there's other musicians that have been honored there. I think when Kiss played their final show, they went there and were honored. But we're actually the first to actually play there, and actually, we did 2 performances. One was, I believe, on the 80th floor in front of a small group of people. And then we actually went to the very top, where King Kong hangs out. And we did a couple of tunes, and it was friggin' freezing out there. And Billy's like, can we do this? And I went, if you do it, I'll do it, And so we did a couple of tunes up there, and the footage I've seen with the drone coming in from the Times Square and revealing us up on the top of the Empire State Building is, as a native New Yorker, man, it's something I would have never predicted.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. I remember shooting MTV breaks up there on the observation deck and going, wow, look where we are. You know what I mean? It was, back
what
in the
a
day.
building. What a feat of engineering. And, to think that was built at the height of the Depression and was designed and completed in 1 year. I mean, the amount of manpower to do that is incredible.
Yeah, and you being from New York and me being from Jersey, and really basically New York too, because that's where I grew up and saw rock and roll shows, and that's it was. I'm sure you're like me. You probably are really interested in the history of New York City because there was that Rick Burns series that was PBS. It was amazing about the history there.
It's crazy though. That's the first time I've ever been in that building. I never went. Even as a kid. We did all the usual other things, but that, for some reason I never did the Empire State Building. So what a great way to actually see the building.
That's great. What songs did you end up performing?
So we did Rebel Yell, did White Wedding, Eyes Without a Face, Dancing with Myself, Catch My Fall.
Yeah. Catch My Fall is a perfect one for being on the top of the Empire State Building, which is. Now, speaking of being in really cool high places, right now it's streaming on Paramount Plus, and it was available in theaters, and then it was the amazing thing that you did with Last Man and Vertigo Live, at the Hoover Dam, state line. Talk to me about that experience, because when Billy Morrison was on the show, he was talking about how incredible that was. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, well, especially for me, I moved to Las Vegas almost 4 years ago. So, I've been out to Lake Mead, and I was aware of, water issues. And so when it was proposed to us and that we'd be somehow involved in getting awareness, it was great. I mean, Billy and I have been together 42 freaking years together.
Yeah.
So at this point, we're looking for crazy places to play. Where, Egyptian pyramids, sure, put us out there, So it was just cool, It's like, hey, we've never done that before. And if anybody's seen the actual film of that, the narration that Billy does about the history of Hoover Dam at the beginning was super well done, and he did a lot of research on it, and it's to play out there, and then you're amongst the hills and the mountains, and when I got to do a bit of my guitar solo, I could hear my guitar echo off the mountains, and I've been out to some of the mountains. I've gone camping out there, and there's like 6,000-year-old petroglyphs out there, and you feel, you're this small in the world when you're out amongst that stuff. So it was a great experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's I know the people that have seen it, of course, and have watched it, love it. And for those watching and listening to us right now, if you haven't watched it, you've got to check it out. It's a really amazing special. It really is something great that you guys ended up doing. And
thanks.
Steve. One of the things that I've always considered you a guitar hero, and it's one of the most innovative guitarists who've come up with just some such unique things in the songs that you've done with Billy over the years, and just coming up with the intro to something like Rebel Yell. I mean and there were things that fans were trying to emulate for so long. Tell me about that. It was just stuff that you really were coming up with as you were on the fly almost. But they're now iconic. Can you tell me about that? Those periods of writing those songs.
Well, I was really fortunate that we had our producer Keith Forsey, who was also just making a name for himself. So it was really the Three Stooges, me, Billy, and Keith. And they always afforded me the opportunity to try things that were maybe a little bit outside of the box. And I think with Rebel Yell in particular, I was adamant that I wanted to take the place of the keyboards that were so predominant and prevalent at that time. Early 80s, everybody had all the latest keyboards, digital, and all this kind of stuff. And I was a fan of the early Queen records, and I loved the fact that Brian May had printed on the album, no synthesizers, and I thought, I approached it to those guys. I said, give me the opportunity to take the place of where keyboards would be. If I don't do it, then bring in the keyboard. So, there's a lot of sonic textures, and also the stuff that we were listening to. And I have to give Idol credit because he exposed me to guys like John McGeoch and Keith Levine from Public Image. And it's almost like what Miles Davis said: learn all the rules and then throw them all away. And I think that's a thing that a lot of guitar players tend to forget. They learn this. You spend your whole life learning the technical abilities of it, and your first inclination is to show everybody how much you can do, and that doesn't serve the song, and it doesn't serve the singer. And I think early on, I just kind of understood that my job was not to do that, and I looked at my main role in the band was as a compositional and sound painter, rather than wait for the guitar solo and shred for 16 bars. And what's the point of that? I remember I always used to say to Billy, what's the lyric? Because that's my cue. I have to know what the motivation is. And I think that served me well. It served me a career now 42 years, because he knows what my motivation is, and it's to make the song the best it can possibly be.
Yeah, and you certainly do. And it was, like I said, it was very creative. I love that you mentioned Keith Levine and John McGill, because John McGill, some may know or may not know, he was in Susie and the Banshees and Magazine, and he had really interesting textures and sounds, too, which were really cool. Of course, both those guys sadly have passed away, but they were so talented. And
John played some great stuff on the third Gen X record. And I remember, when I first met Billy, I go, oh, who's there's a song Heaven's Inside. Who's playing that? And he goes, oh, John McGeoch. And then another song. Who's playing that? John McGeoch. Oh, who's John McGeoch?
Yeah.
Oh, Susie and the Banshees. So it was great. There was a lot of innovative guitar players happening. I think at just around that late 70s, guys from XTC and Andy Summers and The Edge from U2, and it was like a whole new way of playing guitar and using effects and being creative, much like the guitar players in the early 70s who were you had your late 60s guys who were emulating all the blues guys, and then you had this period of guys who were being more creative. So I looked at it much like that same movement.
Yeah, who are some of your favorite guitarists? Tell me about, like, you, Steve, growing up. Like, who are the first guys you loved and listened to, and who were some of those guys you're like, wow, that's really great?
Well, interestingly, I started. I grew up in Far Rockaway, and one of our heroes there was a folk musician named Phil Oakes, and Phil's sister was my first guitar teacher. She was the only. I started playing, I was 7.5, and she was the only guitar teacher that would take me seriously. But I didn't get an electric guitar till I was 13, so all that time was, when all the folk stuff was happening, Joni Mitchell, James Taylor, John Fahey, all this kind of stuff. So
yeah, Phil Oakes, you mentioned, man, I Ain't Marching Anymore, and all those songs that he
exactly.
did.
Yeah, my so his sister-in-law was my Cub Scout den mother, and she got excommunicated because she was seen as anti, whatever, she was teaching her Cub Scout troop, Phil Oakes songs. So I learned how dangerous music could be. So then when I got electric guitar was just around the time of, I don't know if you remember WNEW.
Of course, I listened to it. Yeah, Scott Muni and I had dinner one night. And what a legend Scott was. What a great guy.
Scott had his Things from England show, and I just became a great Anglophile, and I loved all the stuff that they were playing. So those were my early guitar heroes: Robert Fripp, Steve Hackett, Steve Howe, a lot of the progressive rock guys. At that point, progressive rock was absolutely great. It had a period of about 3 years where it was innovative, and it was a way for me to utilize some of the styles that I had learned outside of rock and roll, and then so a lot of those guys, and then obviously growing up in New York, I loved all the the New York guitar players, Tom Verlaine and of course Johnny Thunders, and the all Tough Darts, and if you lived in New York and it was, as a struggling musician, you were proud in New York. You were proud of the bands that got record deals and got their music out there, and of course, with the advent of CBGBs and Maxes, it was it was fertile, man. It was a great scene.
Yeah, it was amazing. You mentioned Tough Darts, and Robert Gordon was singing for them for a while, but I remember John DeSalvo. He used to work at Bleecker Bob's, and I used to go by like all the punk records and like new English stuff that was coming out, like the imports. Right. I would go there, and he was the juxtaposition to Bleecker Bob, who was, not as nice. He was well known for his gun and his dog. But
that dog scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, that dog was a maniac. But John DeSalvo was a kind, peaceful guy and cool and helpful when you were a young kid like I was going into New York City and buying those records. You know what I mean? I want to see what was coming from England,
So at that time, I lived in the music building on 30th Street, and there's like 10 floors of bands with lofts. Back then, you could afford a loft. And the cool thing was that every band supported each other. If one band got a gig, they get the couple of their other friend bands on the same night. And if you needed gear or something, or we pooled our resources. So it was there was a number of guitar players just around the same time that I hooked up with Idol that were successful. Eddie Martinez, who went on to work with Robert Palmer and did the Run DMC records, and a couple other guys so it was great. All us guitar players were getting gigs and working, and proud of each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. That was 8th and 30th, right? So it was that building that, yeah, man, because I used to go, even in the beginning of the 80s, I remember going watching my friends' bands rehearse in there. You were probably, by that time, you had already started, got out with Billy, but I remember late 70s, early 80s, going in there, getting in those like big wood elevators, or like
and we had Alan Vega lived in that building when I first moved in there. Cyndi Lauper lived there. So it was just great. It was just like chock full of talent.
Yeah, I mean, everybody ended up rehearsing there too, from Madonna to you name it. I mean, everybody used that giant building there on 8th and 30th. It's amazing. That's incredible. That we both have memories of that. You living there and then me just visiting bands, you know what I mean? Because I was, but I love that. And, it's amazing that scene that you came out of there. And again, there were so many great bands. We mentioned before we started the Good Rats. I love the Good Rats from Long Island, Pepe Marcello and those guys. But you had Mountain there. You had all these people that, that came out of that area, right?
I mean, that's really where I started. I went to... I went to the high school performing arts. I had been admitted in on guitar, and then they said, well, there's no guitar in the orchestra, so you have to play another instrument. And that's when I lost interest, and I dropped out and got a GED, and then joined a cover band and played. By the time I was 17, I was playing 3-4 nights a week out in all those bars, and that was. Man, that was the best education I could get, was, performing as a guitarist in front of an audience, and you learn quickly that, just like looking down and just noodling away on the guitar wasn't really what it was about, and having to, as a cover band, learn what made those records great. We did a lot of Mott the Hoople and Lou Reed, and I mean, we did everything.
Bowie and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Any things that I mean, the two big bands that did that were Twisted Sister, and there was a band called Rat Race Choir. He had a guitar player named Mark Hitt, who was one of my. To this day, I've never seen a more incredible guitar player, and I was learning all this kind of material from those bands, and just getting out there, playing 3 sets a night, 45 minutes each, and that's man, that's the best training ground in the world.
Yeah, I mean, everybody can relate to that. I mean, when you think about when bands and artists get good, look at the Beatles going to Hamburg, and when they would do a bunch of sets a night, that's how they got tight. You know what I mean? That's how they got. That's how they got strong. I mean, I love this. I mean, you think about it. Here we are, you guys are going 40+ years now. You and Billy are like legendary together. It's amazing that this. People always think of the two of you in that way, but it was so complimentary of each other, even from the get-go. Talk to me about that chemistry that you guys have, Steve, because it's amazing, and the friendship.
Well, I mean, I think it comes from a number one, respect, and I think I was certainly when Billy moved to New York. He was living in a studio little apartment on Grove Street in the West Village, and we'd get together. And my previous band had been picked up for management by Bill Aucoin, who managed Kiss, and I left that band. And then Bill called me, said, "Do you know who Billy Idol is?" Of course. And so, you guys should meet. But we met under the premise that I would help him put a band together. It wasn't like he was auditioning guitar players. So I knew every musician in the city, so I suggested, our bass player and drummer, and I remember I just said to him, when it comes time for you to decide on a guitar player, hopefully you'll consider me. And I think the last thing that I felt that he needed, was he had moved, to a new country. And he didn't need a guitar player who was necessarily a punk rock guitar player, because by then he had done his EP with, Moni Moni and Baby Talk and things like that. And I said to him, I'm capable of playing anything, man. I said, you'll never have to push me. You might have to hold me back and rein me in a little bit, because I might want to play a Jimi Hendrix thing or something. But better to have someone who's capable than always push them and always think, oh man, I wish they would throw something at me that I wasn't expecting. And I think that's really where the basis started. And also, he loved all the New York stuff. He loved the Velvet Underground, and I lived and breathed that stuff. And
the Dolls and all that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of the roots of the punk rock thing. And in essence, I remember one day we mentioned Coney Island Baby, and I used to play that in my cover band. I said, "Oh, I know." I said, "Oh, those two guitar players, Hunter and Wagner, are fantastic," and I knew all that stuff. So, and he needed somebody to write with. That was the thing, and that's what won me over, because when we sat in a room and wrote, that it flowed and it was natural, and he always, I guess this is a punk rock thing, he always felt that if you were in the room and you were writing, you deserved half of the credit. And man, that has served us well for 42 years now. I've never been frustrated by anything about him being the leader of the band or having the record deal.
The full publishing and things like that, where those kind of issues get in the way.
We've never had issues over business. It's just, I guess that's, he always says, well, that's punk rock. You treat your mates well. And hey, if that's punk rock, then it has served us really well. And we have a great band, and everyone gets treated really well, and we're all there to make the best friggin' Billy Idol music and put on the best Billy Idol show that we can, because we believe in him.
Yeah, like Jeremy, you, and Billy, and everybody in the band, right? So it's like amazing. Can we talk about you and Billy Morrison? You've had a #1 single multiple weeks on the KLOS Countdown here on Noon Approved, and all over the country. It's become a huge hit. It's growing all the time. Talk to me about that friendship, because you and Billy Morrison have been in the band together with Billy Idol, of course, and your songwriting partner, and you have this friendship. Talk to me about this song, Crack Cocaine, and you and Ozzy, and how this. Tell me about the metamorphosis of how this thing built out.
Well, it's all good things stem from, at this point in my career, I want to work with people that I like and are genuinely inspiring. I knew my friendship with Billy Morrison started when I had guested with Camp Freddy, and I liked the guy. He's a positive thinker, and he helped me get sober and stay sober. And I just thought that he was such a good character. And then he told me he grew up in Bromley, England, where Billy Idol's from, and used to sneak in and watch Generation X. And we were changing some band members at that time, and we were getting a new drummer, and I just thought that I remember I called Billy Idol up and I said, here's a wacky idea. How about bringing in another guitar player, so that number one, there's a lot of overdubs on the record, so I can start to play parts that maybe I haven't played ever. And it's a refreshing way for me to kind of rediscover the back catalog, and B, this guy's a super fan, a positive guy. He'll be a great influence on the band, and he'll bring a great energy. And Idol said, "Yeah, let's try it," and it was just a natural thing. So, he's just a great guy, and because of that friendship and his friendship with Ozzy, he just gave me a call one day. Says, I had a little demo studio when I was living in LA. Hey, me and Oz want to come over and maybe write some songs. It was as simple as that. And of course, Ozzy comes over, and man, the first time, we're sitting there with a couple of guitars. All right, we got a riff. We put that down. Hey, Oz, what you got? We wrote a couple of songs, and then guy gets behind the mic, and you hear that voice in the room. He's right there. And, the hair stood up on the back of my neck. I don't know if it's because I grew up with those records, or there's just something about that guy's voice, man, that is so, it goes deep.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you obviously had those Sabbath records as a kid growing up, and he did great
absolutely.
Solo records, but I got to say, it's amazing. That's a great thing. So, and the really important thing is the three of you are friends, man. You're like, that's the beauty of that.
It was such a natural thing. There was no big plan. And then when it came, it had sort of been put on the shelf. And then Billy Morrison said, "Hey, I'm thinking about putting that on my solo record." And I said, "Oh, it'd be great for people to hear it," because we kept thinking it was really, really good and kind of represented, the Ozzy era that I just loved, that sort of early '90s thing. And I said, "Hey, man, you got my blessing. However the audience can hear it, let's get it out there."
Yeah, I think it's great, and look at the reaction it's gotten. I mean, people are so excited about it, and
seems that way, yeah.
Which is great. Hey, but I mean, you've got so many things going on, Steve. I mean, and I love that because you're a workaholic in a sense, in such a good way, because it's always doing fun things and creative things. You love to be out and playing. But tell me about Cinnamon Coffee. You've got a coffee collaboration going on too. This sober guys like you and I. Coffee's a big thing, you know what I mean? Like, I'm all about the coffee because
I'm useless. Useless without that first cup. They approached me about doing coffee. Somehow my manager Kent, called me. Go, "Hey, you ever have an interest in coffee?" I go, "Well, I drink the stuff," and I said, "Hey, did they have any flavored coffees in the line?" And it turned out they didn't. And one of my fondest memories was as a kid. I have an older brother, 5 years older, and he'd take me to Greenwich Village, and we'd go see some of these folk artists and even a lot of jazz guys, and he'd stop off at this one coffee shop. You could smell the cinnamon coffee, half a block away, and it's just always been something that I like. Maybe it's just a little comfort thing for me. I smell that cinnamon coffee, and I'm like, I remember such good times. So, we put out a cinnamon coffee.
Yeah, it's cool that it's funny because we talked about that with sobriety. And it's always like coffee is a thing that I'm not willing to give that up. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just a good. Got to get started during the day, which is great. You guys are going to be doing a tour in the spring, and you've got some really cool shows coming up too with Billy and the band. And that's you got a Foo Fighters show that you guys are doing, and there's Tell me about some of the dates that you're doing this
Well,
year. With Billy Idol.
yeah, we're gonna we head up to Canada. We're gonna do a Canadian tour celebrating the 40th anniversary of Rebel Yell. So we're gonna add in a couple of the more obscure things. We'll be doing Love Don't Live Here Anymore. So we'll pack the set list with a bit more of that. And then we have a new Billy Idol record. Hopefully it'll come out in October. That we're super excited about. So I mean, I know everybody said, yeah, we're really excited about it, but we are genuinely excited about it, and it's we work with a bunch of younger musicians, and Tommy English is the producer, and it's damn good. It feels like a really good Billy Idol record.
Hey, listen, the last two EPs have had some great songs on there, man. I mean, it's
oh, thank you.
And the stuff, it really for the time and the legacy of these years on, they're really. It's not like you're like, oh, they got a new record out. There's some great songs on there, man. It's really cool. I was really happy, and we supported it big here at KLOS, obviously, because we love those songs, and had a #1 record here on the countdown as well. So I just feel like, I guess I wanted to listen to this. At this point, man, it's amazing. 40 years. Do you have any memories of when you recorded and were working on writing songs, like working on Eyes Without a Face or Blue Highway or Do Not Stand in the Shadows? Are there any particular moments of where you were? Did you write some of the songs on the road, the studio? Tell me about the writing process for those classics.
Yeah, for us, we've never written on the road because we wanted to avoid that. I'm so lonely in my hotel room.
Yeah.
We didn't want to do that. So, but after, what would always inevitably happen was after we'd play a show, you got, a 7-hour bus ride or whatever, and we'd listen to a lot of music, whatever it was, Creedence or The Doors, and we'd be in the back lounge getting shit-faced, and we hear a song, and we go, we need to write something like that, and just like kind of bookmark it and go, yeah. But soon after we came off the road, we went into a little rehearsal place, and we started to put songs together in a live format. And I remember the only other artist in that rehearsal facility was Miles Davis. I used to see him coming up in the elevator, and I thought, oh, that's a good little inspiration there. And so we came up with a lot of the initial ideas there. I remember Eyes Without a Face. I was living in the basement of my parents' house at that time, and we weren't quite rock stars yet, But the only radio station I could get was CBS FM, which was the oldies station, and a lot of those oldies, Frankie Valli and all that kind of stuff. They have a very similar chord sequence, and musicians would know it as 1-4-5-7. It's like standard for all those doo-wop things. And I started mucking around with these chords, and I got to rehearsal early, and I'm sitting there and I'm playing these chords, and Billy walks in and goes, "Oh, what's that?" I go, I don't know. It's just these chords that I, came up with. And he always had like a yellow legal pad, and he pulls it out and goes, "Oh, I think I might have something that might fit with that." And it was Eyes Without a Face, which, those are things that, man, God gives you these special things that just kind of are meant to be, whatever you want to call it, fate or whatever, or I believe there's a higher power at work with certain situations, and
certainly
we were open to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
No coincidences.
Yeah. It's amazing, and so much great stuff has come out of it. I mean, I love that. Again, those records, they still sound great, and we love the songs, and again, you continue to write great stuff and tour, and you guys crush it live. I mean, really, that's the thing that's always amazing. It's just, that you guys are, you love what you do. It's so obvious when I watch you guys perform. I know I see the love and the joy and the passion for what you do, which is just that's the best.
I believe I get to stand next to the best singer in the world, and that guy, you're on stage with him. It's inspiring, and I'm it still kicks my ass, and it's like, and Billy Morrison and all the guys and our drummer Eric, and keyboard, we're just like, we're so fortunate to do what we do, and we don't forget that, and we are really fortunate to have such a dedicated fan base, and the initial fans are getting older, but they're getting younger too, and inevitably we do a meet and greet, and some guy's got his kid with him, and he wants to know what his first guitar should be, and to make an impact, and maybe that's going to be the next Steve Stevens or what. Man, it's what an amazing opportunity. I wanted to mention one other thing. I got something coming out with the band Bullets and Octane, and
now, those guys are a great band. I like those guys a lot. Talk to me about that.
So Gene said to send his best to you.
Yeah, they're great, those guys.
So this is a great example. So Gene Lewis posts, on his TikTok or whatever. I had heard of the band, but I wasn't that familiar. And he posts every morning, and he's a really positive guy, has a great image. And I'm like watching this, and I go, wow, I should meet this guy, So I contacted him and started to listen to some of the new music they're doing. And he's got a partner, a guitar player named Clay Davies. And I saw them very similar to the way that Billy and I work. And I said, these guys really should be a household name. There's no reason. This guy's a rock star. And so we had a great initial conversation. He said, hey, you wouldn't think about playing on a song? I go, absolutely. Send me what you got. I love the song. Played on it. We shot a video for it, which he has told me I should send to you. It's still being edited. But I had a great time. I met them, and that's another example of relationships that occur, much like my Billy Morrison thing. At this point in my life, I want to work with positive people, good people that are excited about what they're doing, and it was just a hell of a lot of fun to meet them and work with them.
Yeah, I'm excited about it because I've always been a fan of theirs, and Gene's great, man, and those guys are. So I'm looking forward to checking out the new music, and I can't wait for your new record when that comes too. So there's there's a lot of things to look forward to. Steve, you're always such a great performer and a great innovative guitarist. Always been a fan. I know you have so many fans that are watching and listening to us right now. So I want to thank you for coming on and hanging and doing the show, because I love when we connect and hang out, and you and I just start going off and talking about like records that we love, and and players, absolutely. Right? I mean, it's great.
Absolutely. I think the first time we met was after one of the shows, and it was just like, yep. It was like a nonstop. And I was in New York, and it was just great. And I watch your shows. I love your interviews, and you're knowledgeable, and you're a fan, and you have a great story to tell yourself, and that comes through.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. That means the world to me, man. I got to tell you, again, it's a beautiful thing that we get to do what we love, and we're still healthy, and we're alive, and we're here, and we're rocking. It's the most important thing in the world. It feels good to be here.
It never changes. We're still knuckleheads.
Yes, we are. I'm still an idiot that loves rock and roll. You know what I mean? I don't take myself too seriously, but I take the music seriously.
Absolutely.
I take my love for my friends and the music very seriously, and the people that I care about, my loved ones. That's
I know you do. I know you do, man.
The most important thing. So, but it's like, Steve, this was great. It was so great to have you on the show. My
pleasure.
And we'll be connecting again soon and hanging out soon. So thank you so much for taking the time to do the show with me. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Steve Stevens, right here on KLOS, new and approved. I'm Matt Pinfield. Thanks so much for watching and listening.